Hello everyone in the chess world. So again, well, this is gonna be the second game that I'll show you where I'm gonna beat an FM. I think it was a FIDE master, maybe it was an international, but I think it was a FIDE master, and nowadays he's an international master. So this game I was black. In this tournament, my opponent had I think like 2250, something like that. So yeah, not such a strong rating for the best players, but still 300 rating points above me. So he was supposed to crush me, as they usually do, this this kind of player. So again, I was black, and although my opponent started with this knight on f3, we quickly transposed into a King's Indian defense, which is my pet line. So we went into the classical variation. And again, I played my pet line against the classical, which is this bishop on g4, instead of the most known and played e5 move, right? So I had prepared this game, and initially my opponent played what I was expecting. He played the bishop on e3 variation. I answered with a theoretical and my accustomed line, knight f on d7. This was one of the main ideas of this line. We want to someday play like this and put pressure on this point. You can also, with the same idea of pressure on d4, one day play with c5. So he played rook c1. This is a very specific theoretical line because, I mean, castles is an obvious option. There's a lot of players play this set up with white. And against rook c1, I had prepared this a6 move, which has the idea of playing c5 next. And, well, this happened. My opponent kept playing what I was expecting, castles. c5 came. But now here it came the first surprise, because he took on c5, which is a good move, definitely. But I'm sure I remember that my preparation was much more focused on this d5 move, which is, well, this is usually played. In this position, you'll see much more often this d5 than d takes on c5. So it's funny because I had prepared a few lines in this d takes on c5, but still I stopped, here. It was the first moment where I decided to think a little bit, because, eventually I played knight takes on c5, which was a move that was satisfying for me according to what I had prepared and I was calculating during the game. But definitely nowadays I will just play d takes on c5, which is, well, not only I would like to avoid the lines that happen in this game, but also this has the classical idea of, well, my main idea will be to go knight c6 and one day knight on d4, probably blowing up this f3 knight before doing so. And yes, just having this great outpost for a knight, backed up, by the bishop, by the pawn. Definitely I will play this nowadays. But when I play knight takes on c5, he played b4, which was what I was expecting. And white does look good, but I just play knight on e6. I was still happy with my position, and you'll see why this is interesting. So he played knight on d5. This is one of the things, by not playing, d5 in this position and instead of taking on c5. Well, in this other position, of course, the d5 square is vacated for his knight to go in. But I just play knight on c6, which is development. I'm covering this point that this knight is hitting, so now my queen is even free to move if she wants to do it. And my opponent played queen d2. Again, white is doing everything right so far. And again, I did take some minutes to think in this position, but eventually I played what was kind of my general plan. I took on f3 and played knight on e4, and I was happy because normally, in the King's Indian and in the lines that I play, normally, when I get a knight into this cool outpost on d4, well, I normally have either a pawn on c5 or one on e5 to give great support. So in a way, I was kind of feeling good. I was like, oh, this is such a cool thing to have such a great knight without even needing the support of a pawn. I had not played this specific position ever before. And what is interesting about all of this is that I was happy, but I was wrong, totally wrong. This position is one of a clear advantage for white. And, well, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and think to try and find the move for white here. But first, a little story. After this game, when I was showing this game to some of my friends, because we had trouble with friends, this tournament was not played in my city. So we were always, looking at everyone's games, the ones that we were sharing a hotel room and stuff like that. So when I showed them this position, I told them, like, if anyone can find the best move for white here, not only the best move, but the plan and the ideas behind it, well, the beers are on me, for anyone. And I was pretty confident that they wouldn't find it. And I was right. They didn't find it. I'm almost 100% sure that I would have not found this move, because it's not that it is so hard or that there is much to calculate. Basically, you just gotta see the right move and the right idea and the right plan. Just understand the position. But this is not an easy task. So pause the video and think. Okay, so as a first clue, I'm going to show you what my opponent played, which is bishop on g4. A thematic move in this sort of King's Indian. This is classical. Once a knight is threatening to take the pair of bishops, well, it's really normal to see this bishop sneaking out onto g4. Also looking at this nude diagonal is not bad. And this is not a terrible move, but it is not the right move. So the right move was bishop on d1. An unexpected move, and it's not so natural. For the moment, caught in communication between the rooks, so yeah, already just a little reason just not to glance at bishop on d1 immediately. But what I love is the idea behind it. So look at this, because this was obviously shown by me to me by the computer. What the computer wants to do is just follow up with the plan of playing a4 and then b5. Of course, b5, even in this position, if we are looking at this position, forgetting about the fact that black is threatening to take the bishop, yeah, of course, white wants to do the b5 break. But we might not think about including a4. And the thing is, look at this, bishop on d1. So yeah, the idea is a4 followed by b5. The thing is, I am paralyzed. And this is why my assessment of the position was so wrong. I cannot do basically anything in here. Look, in the game, after bishop on g4, I played e6. But in this variation, after bishop on d1, if I play e6, computer is like, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. a4. This is the cool thing. I'm not threatening anything by e6, because now, if I take the knight, well, of course, white is just going to recapture, and they're going to be, well, recovering the piece either here or here, because this c6 move is, c6 knight is going to move, abandoning the protection of the knight. So it's really funny, after bishop on d1, I'm so passive. It's like, and it's so funny that computer is again showing me the plan of a4 followed by b5. Well, I have two tempos. Well, what to do with those two tempos? And you'll see that this thing of what to do with tempos when we have such a passive position is so true in this position that, look, in the game, my opponent played bishop on g4, and I answer with e6. So the computer in this position was recommending bishop d1 back, just saying to white, hey, correct your, imprecise move that you made, and you're still fine. Again, with the idea of a4 and b5. Look, you might think, well, what is the difference? Why the bishop on d1 and not on g4? Well, because after, in the game, he played bishop on g4 and I went e6. Well, now you cannot play a4, because there is simply, this is the reason for the bishop on d1. Here we have this double attack over the rook and the queen, but not with the bishop on d1. So again, really, I think finding bishop on d1, finding the plan of a4 and b5, and realizing that e6 is never threatening anything, it's a line that is worth me paying the beers at least for one round, definitely. Okay, nobody found that. So let us go back to the game. Bishop on g4, I play e6. Well, not only my opponent did not play bishop on d1, which is obvious. I mean, both of us missed this bishop on d1 idea during the whole game. But curiously, and as I said in the previous video where I showed, a game which was I was beating a much stronger player, well, normally for that to happen, my opponent has to help me. And he did exactly that in this moment. He played b5, which is wrong move. It's just a bad move. And I remember that I was thinking a little bit here during the game, because I was like, hey, I had glanced b5 and I thought this was not possible, but I was like, I'm facing a really much stronger opponent, so I'll take a few minutes to see if there's something that I miss. But after a few minutes I was like, okay, I don't see it. If there's something that I'm missing, let my opponent show it to me and lecture me about it. So I took, and after pawn takes, I just took the extra pawn. So he blitz out bishop on g5. Again, a move that I had seen, but I answered with queen on a5. And yeah, in the post-mortem, he told me that he actually had missed queen a5. And again, this happens. I mean, it might seem stupid. How can such a strong player miss that? It just happens. Sometimes we have a bad day. And okay, well, this position is basically winning for black. So, well, he exchanged queens. And here I understand he realized that after his mistake he was totally lost, so he was looking to, not anymore looking for the best objective move. You're just trying to make practical moves, trying to find anything that might save you. So he played knight on b6. Again, this is a bad move because, well, with knight on f6 check, of course I cannot take that knight. So after king on h8. Well, I don't know if it's even worth it, trying to protect the a pawn for white. It's probably not, but at least it's white's turn. So after knight on b6, well, I just took on a2, and then I was like, okay, I'm 2 pawns up, so the technique should be easier for me. So he played knight on d7, but I double up the rooks. He played rook b1. Again, these were all lines that I had seen. I'm sure I'm passing these moves quickly, but I was actually kind of spending at least 3 or 4 minutes in each move because I got a winning position so early and I had a lot of time in the clock. So I was just trying to be careful, When it's again a psychological thing. You get a winning position against a much stronger opponent. You know that this opponent is never going to resign unless it's just shameful position. So yeah, you're trying to be precise, So I went knight c3 and we exchanged these pawns. He went bishop on h4, and again I had seen that I was gonna first liquidate, so make things easier for me. I thought about that, is when you're facing a stronger opponent and you're reaching an ending or middle game, pre-ending, you just want to make things easier for you. You don't want chaos. That's what your opponent wants, create some chaos to maybe find something, some hidden resources. So he came back, but I exchanged one pair of rooks and executed this g5 move that, it's something that I had seen before. And of course, I was not expecting my opponent to play the obvious bad move, bishop on g3, because, I'm not even going to open the engine. I remember that what I had seen here was like, well, after knight on c3, I'm hitting the rook, and I'm kind of going for f5 and then f4. Maybe I'll even win another piece. Of course, I was expecting what he played, which is bishop on f3 intermediate move. And you know what? I will take this opportunity to ask you what will you play with black here? Because again, this was a line that I had already calculated. I had my response already, so I played quite quickly. But still, pause the video and think. So, yeah, g takes h4. On the one hand, you might think, that's an obvious move. On the other hand, you might think, isn't that what white wants? Because now, after bishop takes on e4, what happened in the game? Of course, I have d5, which is what I played, but you might argue, okay, white managed to double one of black's pawns, and I have double pawns on the h5, and at least we have opposite color bishops. This is, according to technique, this is at least what white is searching for, just having opposite color bishop. But the thing is, look at this, because he won bishop on c2, and all you had to see is that, yeah, bishop on d4. So these opposite color bishops are not making the position more drawish, are actually making technique much easier for me, because now there's a big target here on f2. Of course, I'm intending some rook on a2 and ganging up against that pawn. If I can force white to have to go to a passive defense with rook f1, because there's even the spin here, so you're not going to even dream about some f3 or f4 later on. You can see now how as soon as you pay a little bit of attention, well, now it's much easier for me. So in the game, he played bishop on d3. I went rook on e2 and rook on f1. And well, once again, you'll be able to appreciate how all I wanted to do is make things easy for me, because in here white is totally tied up. I already accomplished what I wanted. This just grip on the f2 pawn, so white basically cannot move. So I don't know. And if I were to pass on this position, like, I don't know, king g7 now, something like that, it will be fine. But I was trying to make things even easier for me. So I made a move that again initially looks like strategically wrong, but that it is making things simple for me. I just went rook on a7, because the knight is trapped. This knight here is trapped, has nowhere to go. Everything is covered, because another cool thing about this bishop on d4 was not only hitting on f2, but dominating this knight. So I'm forcing, the move bishop on d5, which is what he played, the only move. And I was like, yeah, rook takes, bishop takes. And once again, you might think, but aren't you playing for your enemy? Now at least they're closer to opposite color bishops. If we were to exchange rooks, well, maybe white will have some chances. But the thing is, again, this is much easier, because I play here, just hitting the bishop. Okay, he went away, again hitting the bishop. Again hitting the bishop. And after rook b1, well, this is the last moment where I'll ask you to pause the video and think, because I had calculated just, again, it's quite simple, but with the same ideas that we've been discussing, in this whole game. There is one move that it's clearly the move for black here. So just pause the video and think. So yeah, the move that I had foreseen was rook on d3. I know that is quite obvious, but the thing is, my idea is really simple. I just want to go back to d2 and force him again to go to rook f1, so he's totally paralyzed. And once again, opposite color bishop won't be a factor that'll make the game more drawish. Quite the opposite. And the last detail that you have to see is, well, white's back rank, right? I mean, this is why white wouldn't even get a last hope of exchanging pieces, because in here you just take the bishop and they cannot take because there's a back rank mate. So that's why in this position, although it's easy, well, just rook d3 with idea of rook d2 and preventing any possibility of exchanging rooks is the last, maneuver, that will make things so too easy for black. And okay, he played h3, a little some error, but now it's too late. Rook d2, and after rook f1, well, in here I thought for some time, and I was like, well, I actually played king g7 and he resigned, because, well, this is typical when you have a totally winning position, and even on a technically winning position where you see that your opponent is basically zugzang. Well, this typical move that shows to your opponent, hey, I know that you cannot even move, so yeah, I could even first bring my king, up just to fool around, and that'd be nothing to do for white. So, well, again, as in the first video, that I show you, yeah, my opponent definitely helped me a lot. But it was still, you need this sort of mix, in the sense that, okay, a bad day for your opponent that is much stronger than yourself, and a good day for you, in the sense that, okay, he helped me, but once I was winning, at least I was able to show, some decent technique to make things easier and easier for myself, and not leave any windows of opportunity for the opponent. So, well, as usual, I'll leave a citronetta to ask you to like, comment, share, and subscribe in case you like the video. And thanks a lot for watching. I will see you next time.